6:20. It's time to take a look at your money. On Thursday, the U.S. Department of Labor released its latest data on the state of inflation. According to the Consumer Price Index, consumer prices in September rose another 0.2%. However, the national inflation rate declined from 2.5% down to 2.4%. Financial advisor Mark Grevicheski joining us now live on Zoom to break this down for us. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Devin. Happy Monday. Good to see you again, as always.
Yeah, so help us understand these numbers. If the inflation rate fell from 2.5% to 2.4%, does that mean that consumer prices are actually falling?
Very good question. Let's kind of break it down a little bit more because when you look at these inflation numbers, you really need to break it down into, monthly versus the annual change in prices. In September, according to the latest Consumer Price Index, consumer prices did rise 0.2% from August. On a monthly basis, consumer prices have now risen in 51 out of the last 52 months. Now, in September, as you just mentioned, the national inflation rate, it did fall from 2.5 down to 2.4%. But we need to remember what the definition of inflation actually is. Inflation is the annual increase in prices for consumer goods and services. So with an inflation rate of 2.4%, that means that consumer prices on average are now 2.4% higher than they were 12 months ago. This means consumer prices are still rising, just at a slightly slower pace.
Okay, so what are some areas of consumer spending where prices have been declining, but also what areas still remain problematic for consumers?
I tend to focus on those basic necessities and those goods and services most everybody needs. Now, on the positive side, Devin, prices for food and clothing have finally started to at least moderate. Energy prices are down almost 7% over the past 12 months. Prices for both new and used vehicles have also started to decline. However, Devin, there are still a number of concerns. Over the past 12 months, the cost of shelter has risen 4.9%. The broader services category up 4.7%. Medical costs up another 3.3%. So overall, Devin, we are starting to see some improvement in those critical basic necessities. But at the same time, there still are a number of key goods and services that remain stubbornly high.
And you spoke about energy prices. One of the
Yep.
bigger concerns we're now hearing is the impact of the ongoing Middle East conflict on energy prices. How could this conflict start to drive inflation higher?
Yeah, this is kind of an ongoing story, Devin, that Wall Street is really kind of focused on with kind of a laser precision. Look, when this Israel-Palestine conflict first started last October, little over a year ago, the biggest economic concern was that this conflict spreading out across the broader Middle East region and disrupting that critical global supply of crude oil. The Middle East is home to some of the largest oil producing countries that collectively produce around 30% of the world's total crude oil output. And what we've seen over the past month or so is an expansion of this conflict into Iran, into Lebanon, that sent crude oil prices rising over 17%. Look, crude oil impacts almost every single facet of our daily lives. From a single barrel of crude oil, we get, gasoline, diesel fuel, jet fuel, heating oil. Crude oil is used in the manufacturing of chemicals, the plastics. The list just kind of goes on and on and on. So if crude oil prices continue to rise, it could cause inflation to reignite and send consumer prices rising even higher. So it's a story that Wall Street is certainly following.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to follow it as well. That's really putting it into perspective. Thank you, Mark.
Great to see you again. Enjoy the rest of your week, Devin. Take care.
You as well. See you next week.